YouTube? This is Cover 2 Credits. We are back. Finally, we're having a dual video. Haven't had one of those in a while. We've been doing our solo thing. It's been a mess. Anyway, new Marvel movie out, so we decided to get the band back together, as they say, and do a real review for the first time in, what's it been, a month probably? 2 months? 3 months?
Since probably the beginning of the year, so since like December.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. We haven't been really keeping it together that well.
Movies have kind of also been slow at the beginning of the year. They always are. February is kind of the beginning.
The beginning of the beginning.
Well, you can't say this is the beginning of, like, the summer movie season, because it's far from summer, but this is kind of the first heavy hitter that's just going to get the ball rolling, and we're talking, of course, about Black Panther. Now, the latest installment into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the latest, I guess you could say, origin movie. It's the first for Black Panther, even though he's been in a couple other movies. We also know, because we've seen the trailers, that basically a lot of the people you see in this movie are going to be in Infinity War. There is a large-scale battle that takes place in Wakanda. We'll get to that later on. Now, we're going to do a little bit of the whole, talk a little about the story, talk about the acting, give it a rating, then we'll talk about a few things that I've recently read and thought about in the Marvel Universe at the end. So at the beginning, basic story. Very, very first thing they do is they give you backstory into who and what the Black Panthers are in this story. Did you like that explanation, how they kind of explained everything, Kevin?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, as origin stories go.
Yeah, what I mean is, I think they explained it well. The whole thing about there were 5 tribes in this area of Africa. A meteor had hit a long time ago that gave this area a large amount of metal that's very precious, named vibranium, that is used basically in Wakanda for everything. It can carry and redistribute kinetic energy. So, like, if you give it an electric current, it then produces more electricity. So, like, it runs their city. They build their technology with it. It advances their technology. They use it medically, which is a weird part of the movie, I think. But then there's, like, the 4 of the 5 tribes decide to work together. One tribe isolates themselves out. The leader of the 4 tribes decides that he's going to also... They find this heart-shaped herb that gives them super strength, agility, stuff like that. They become the king and protector of Wakanda, also known as the Black Panther. And that's handed down from king to king to king and so forth. Well, then we kind of hit the ground running. It was Civil War or Winter Soldier that we got introduced?
I believe it was Winter Soldier.
We got introduced to them because in that movie is when Bucky... I think it might have been Civil War.
I think it might have been Civil War, too.
Either way, the storyline is T'Chaka, who is T'Challa's father. Now, I'll tell you this, by the way. Enough African names. I have IMDb up because I don't want to mess this up. Now, the main people I know, but some of the side characters I don't want to mess up. T'Chaka is an ambassador for Wakanda at like a UN summit or something like that, and Bucky, at the time as the Winter Soldier, blows it up and kills him. When he dies, T'Challa, played by Chadwick Boseman, becomes king and, in theory, also becomes Black Panther. We get introduced to him there. This movie, though, takes place basically all in Wakanda, minus a few little scenes. And we kind of start by learning, there's a reason that Wakanda has not been involved with anybody outside of itself in the world. They don't want to necessarily give away the technology they have, and they also don't necessarily want to, like, leverage a war that's going on outside of there. Because if they give the technology and the weapons they have to somebody, they're going to be advanced enough that they're going to win whatever conflict they're in. So Wakanda has abstained and stayed hidden. That's why people think it's a third world farming country. All this kinds of stuff. We learn who Andy Serkis's character is, Ulysses Claw. And Claw had, in the comics and in the movies, I guess the story is, he had found his way to Wakanda and had a group with him, fought into the country enough to steal some vibranium and end up killing some people in Wakanda. In the comic books, that campaign actually killed T'Chaka, who is T'Challa's father, the older king. Now, obviously in the movies, that's not the way the story goes, but in the movie, it killed, I can't think of his name. I'm looking. W'Kabi, played by Daniel Kaluuya from Get Out, if you didn't know that. His parents, and that kind of comes into play later on. But from what I've gone so far is, Kevin, what you want to continue or give me some feedback on what you thought about this so far?
Well, this movie has a lot going for it. It got some really just astronomically good reviews. I'm not sure I agree with all of them, but I do agree with most of them. Definitely one of the better Marvel movies that's been out ever. But it's not really... It wasn't really a Marvel movie, really. I mean, it kind of was, but it kind of wasn't. I
agree. It is a comic book movie.
It's definitely different than the standard fare, and I don't think that's a bad thing, because you've been playing the same card pretty hard for the last while, and it's good to bring in different styles of storytelling and go that route. I definitely thought it was pretty decent. One of the better parts about the movie, the villain, they actually go into his backstory and why he's doing the things he's doing, and that definitely helps out a lot, because Marvel has had some pretty bad villains a lot of times.
I have a theory about those bad villains we'll talk about later that might not make them as bad as we think. However, I completely agree that the MO is kind of hey, this guy seems menacing. Oh, never mind. Cannon fodder, they're gone. This Killmonger...
Well, not even that. A lot of times it's like, oh, I'm super evil because I want to be super evil or rule the world or make lots of money.
That's
and it's
true.
like,
even though
it's such
Killmonger
generic
had the
reasons.
Same thing. He talked about the same idea that he wanted to rule the world from Wakanda, in theory. So
yeah, but at least you understand his motivations rather than, he fell in a vat of chemicals and now he wants to kill everyone in the world forever.
Well, I mean, you can agree with me. Nice Joker reference. I like that. But you can agree with me there that this movie does one thing very, very well, and is world building. They give you the history and they build this world of Wakanda in the universe that you already know exists very, very well, I thought.
Yeah, they did an excellent job with that. I think there was a reason they did, and I believe that that's because it's getting to the point where you're going to have to kill off a lot of the old heroes and replace them with new heroes.
Coming.
So
I think it's coming big time.
I think this is, you're introducing one of the newer sort of stars that's going to be around once they kill off, Captain America and Iron Man and all those guys. Because we're going to have to get rid of a bunch of them, because...
I know I keep leading into this. Later on we'll talk about... I think they might have introduced us to multiple new characters that will come to fruition once the hammer drops in Infinity War. Because I have a feeling, especially after the first Infinity War movie, because there are 2 Avengers movies coming back-to-back years, one this May and another one the following year, I think there's a lot of people that are going to be on the chopping block.
Yeah, definitely.
And so we'll get to that later on. Now, acting, it's a Marvel movie. Now, I enjoyed seeing the predominantly African-American cast, but seeing how they intertwined African culture into, into a country that they've basically created from the ground up. Technologically advanced, yet extremely traditional. And the mix was interesting to me. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does.
I thought that they did that very well.
Yeah, I thought a lot of it was kind of weird, but I think they pulled it off.
I think it was weird because, well, at least for me, there's some things that, like, obviously we don't see that often. So, like, some of the traditional things that happened, like, they still do a lot of, like, a dancing and chanting kind of scenarios at times that is like, this seems odd but okay because it makes sense in the African culture, so I get it. I thought it was interesting that each of the tribes you saw did use like a different animal totem. Did you notice that?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was interesting. Later on, we'll mention a few things that might be a little spoilerish, so we won't talk about that. But like, I thought the acting was great. Martin Freeman as Everett Ross is kind of one of the only other characters that you're going to recognize, other than Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa. In fact, other than maybe an after credit scene, he's definitely the only character that we've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And we did see Andy Serkis in Age of Ultron because Ultron chops off his arm. Mm-hmm. And in this movie, we realize what happened. And Claw in the comic books has like a sonic blaster from his elbow down. So they took that and kind of spun on its head a little bit and did a fun thing with it, I thought. So he's a decent character and still has kind of the same MO as the rest of the Marvel villains right now. But that's a whole other thing. So, was there anybody you didn't like, acting-wise?
No, I thought all the acting was pretty excellent.
I thought they were great. And I thought it was cool that there were a lot of people that were kind of no-names.
Yeah,
Acting is
always pretty excellent in Marvel movies. But yeah, they brought in a lot of fresh blood, and like I said, that's obviously something they need to do to move the series forward if they want to keep the train alive.
Yep. And then you did see a couple of people you would recognize: Sterling K. Brown, Angela Bassett, Forrest Whitaker. Like they had some fairly big names: Lupita Nyong'o, Michael B. Jordan. So people you would recognize, especially currently. Ryan Coogler, who directed this, has done very, very good movies: Fruitvale Station, Creed. Now this, all three of which have Michael B. Jordan in them. All three of which have been like on lists for different awards, so they work very well together. I thought Coogler knocked this out of the park. I know the hype was real, and people were kind of like, we're worried. This is a gigantic hype for this movie. I think it met the hype. Now, I will say, and you and I had this conversation, some people are taking that hype to even more of an extreme. But I'll say this, neither one of us are also a minority. I can understand because there's not a lot of minority major characters, and this is a minority-filled cast. Mm-hmm. And it is a beautifully done movie. Acting, design, the whole thing. And it's just like... And even the women in this movie are extremely prominent and extremely powerful. And that by itself is a cool aspect. From the guards he has, for some reason I totally am drawing a blank on what they call the guards. That's really bothering me because I knew it. But
I don't know.
To like his sister who runs all the tech, Shuri, to Nwongo's character Nakia, who is like kind of his like love interest, but she's also a war dog. There's a lot there that I was like, this is done very well for like pushing women to the forefront of Marvel, which they haven't done really. Yes, Black Widow's there, but like not really in the forefront that much.
She's a support character.
Yeah, she is.
A leading support character, but still a support character.
Exactly. And these characters were support characters also, but I still feel like they were pushed to the forefront in their own moments more than what some had been in the past. And I thought it was done very, very well. Okay. Anything you want to say before we get to a rating?
Yes. Okay.
Go for
a couple of things. One, I know this movie's been getting ridiculously high ratings, like silly high in a lot of places, especially Rotten Tomatoes. They got like a 98.
Yeah, IMDb give it a 7.8.
7.8? That's not really high at all. That's pretty low.
Just it's IMDb though. That's user based.
Yeah.
So continue. 97 Rotten Tomatoes score. Audience score 76. That's low to me.
That is definitely low, but I would say the critical acclaim for it is a bit too high as well. It's somewhere definitely in the middle of those two. Things I do want to talk about, though. They did a good job with the villain. I loved 100%, absolutely loved the music in this. The music doesn't get a lot of play in a lot of movies, but I love the music in this.
All done by Kendrick Lamar.
I loved the acting. The weak part was the story. I don't know how many stories, movies, books, media have been done on the whole... This is the prince, he gets kicked off his throne by a relative and then has to come win it back after going through some sort of trial. That's like the oldest story there is ever.
I think the argument you can make... I agree. I agree, because once you pointed out to me a few correlations for other stories, I agree.
Yeah, granted, this is a superhero. It's a comic book movie, which means the stories and plots are all fairly elementary because that's what comic books are about.
And I was going to say, this is a very different story to anything we've had Marvel.
Mm-hmm. And so like I said, it's definitely different than what we've been getting. It's not really even a Marvel movie, at least in the way that they have been. And I think that's done really good for it. However, like I said, the plot was just, to me, not quite there, and some of the action scenes were, again, just not quite there. And, like I said, it wasn't bad, wasn't great.
And then to me, though, there were other action scenes that were great.
Oh, yeah, there were a lot of really great action scenes, and there were a lot of really silly action scenes as well.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And, like I said,
real quick, a little spoiler, but we're not going to get specific. Rhinos, good or bad?
Bad.
See,
one of the dumber parts of the movie.
I thought part of it was bad, and I thought part of it was good. The rest of that scene, I did like, though. Like, that battle.
Yeah, well, anytime you have a mass battle like that, things do get a little silly.
Well, it's cannon fodder. Marvel does cannon fodder better than anyone. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the trailers for Infinity War, that's the same thing that's going to happen again in Wakanda. There's an invasion of some aliens, and they kind of look like arbiters from Halo, and it just gigantic fight with all of the Wakandans and a bunch of Avengers, and it looks like it's just going to do the same thing. We don't know. We'll see, but let's continue. Anything else before rating? I'm sorry.
One more thing.
Okay.
If you swap uncle for cousin, you end up with the Lion King, which is what this movie is. I mean, I hate to say that, and I hate to stereotype the whole movie, but it really honestly is. Like, if you trade him, his cousin, who is the main villain, for his uncle instead, like, you have the Lion King, basically.
Minus the father's death by them, yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are obviously, it's not the same story, but the correlations are incredibly close, and that, to me, that takes away a few points at least. All right, let's get to the rating before Stairs freaks out. We need to wrap this baby up. We're almost at 20 minutes.
That's okay. Well, I'll cut it down. So, I'm giving it an 8. If we gave it 0.5s, I would. I enjoyed this a lot. I enjoyed it for two things: the world building and the fact that it is so much different than anything else Marvel has done. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to give it an 8. And again, like I said, if I could give it a 0.5, I would. I think this probably almost deserves a 9. If they hadn't been quite so cliched with the plot, I would have probably given it a 9 because I love the acting, I love the music, I love the world building, like the visuals of Wakanda and the technology, all of that was awesome. The fight scene in South Korea, that was awesome. Yeah, there's just a lot of really cool stuff in this movie. And again, I don't know how you feel or don't feel about the cultural stuff and the women's roles and the African American roles. You can take it, you can leave it. That's obviously personal preference, but there is a lot of it. Maybe too much to some people, maybe really too much to a lot of people, and not enough to some people.
It does take place in Africa. Of course, it's going to be a minority-driven movie, and in that culture, women are a higher, like, you know what I mean? Like, they could.
Yeah, I mean, they're not as patriarchal a society as most of Western civilization. I get that part.
Yeah.
It's just the movie gets a bit preachy at times.
There are
in numerous places, it gets a little preachy.
There are lines where I was like, "Wow, that's where you go." There?
Yeah, I'm like, you're getting a little preachy for the sake of being preachy, and
including someone's last line in the movie.
Yes, that was just
when
dumb.
They said it. I was like, "Are you serious?" Like,
yeah,
I get it.
I
get it. Like, yeah, sure, this is a perfect movie to make some kind of a statement in, but I was like,
it wasn't really needed, and like I said, there was a bit too much of that. Not a lot too much.
That was the worst part to me.
Yeah, that was a bit over the top, and there were a couple other plots where I cringed a little, but I mean, most of it was fine and good, and like I said, you obviously have that. That's what the whole thing is based around, is their culture. I understand that part. But like I said, they got a little preachy to me, so that's why I'm going to give it an 8. Like I said, it's right on the borderline between 8 and 9 to me, and I would have given it a 0.5 if we still allowed those, but we stopped because we were giving everything a 0.5. I'm going to give it an 8, although giving it a nod to 9 would be pretty easy, I feel like. So
even though you did have issues, it wasn't that big of an issue, really.
Yeah, no, like I said, I've been given a lot of Marvel movies 8s, and I gave a couple of them 7s, and I've given some of the really good ones 9s. But to me, you've got to keep upping the Marvel game to keep getting 8s, and this movie does that.
I agree.
I think they move
did you stay for the after credit scenes?
Quality of the movies up a notch, which is why I'm going to keep giving them 8s, even though they keep recycling stuff.
Did you stay for the after credit scenes?
I did not.
Okay. First after credit scene, I felt like could have been in the movie. Second after credit scene, we'll talk about in a different video. I think we're going to film a second video, so this one took forever, talking about a few theories I have, something that I saw that was cool about a couple characters from this movie, and we'll talk about one of the after credit scenes. So, stay tuned. We may put 2 of these up on Monday. One will be up on Monday. Maybe the next one will be up on Tuesday or Wednesday. But, as usual, like this video if you've enjoyed any of this conversation. Tell us what you think of Black Panther. A lot of people have went out and seen this movie. If you haven't seen it, both of us recommend going to see it. It's a lot of fun in the theaters. The crowds are really good right now. This is a good lead-in as the last movie before Infinity War. It doesn't, like, push that in your face, but you also remember, and you see a trailer beforehand, that you know it's coming. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, all at Cover to Credits. Anytime there's something cool pops up that I see, I put it up on Facebook or Instagram. And until next time.
Thanks for staying till after the credits.